So let's go back to 1664, Elizabethtown. What would you have seen? Well, the Elizabeth we know today was still but a dream that would only begin to take shape in the next year. Plotted at the site of an old Indian village at the mouth of the Elizabeth River, New Jersey's first English settlers began a frontier life, albeit the trappings of civilization a day's travel away. In this early period, one would have seen small log cabins and Algonquinesque wigwams huddled along the south end of the Elizabeth port. The Elizabeth River's divide between DeHart's Point and the port would be more substantial as high tide and free-flowing river flood a brackish marsh along the banks of the north side of the river. You see receding banks and become aware the river would flood for meters under wet conditions. Around this soon-to-be temporary village, on slightly higher ground, you would find small plots of recently cleared forest. These fields are strictly subsistence farming in 1664. As you meander around the settlement and surrounding areas, you may encounter villagers hunting or trapping, as both were the only substantial sources of protein available. The latter also a commodity supplying the wealth these settlers could trade for coin or necessities directly. Speaking of which, as peruse a recent clearing towards the waterfront, you see a small rowboat navigating towards the mouth of the river. Aboard a few settlers returning with necessary supplies from a trading post on Staten Island. Or perhaps the group went to Manhattan, where they can make a little more for their wares. There they may have purchased a nicety of life, for themselves or for a loved one. However, they stopped on Staten Island for supplies where the coin will go further. You can ask them this evening. The settlement will gather and break bread tonight around a large fire in the center of the village. Walking along the waterfront, you would take in a breath of fresh air somewhat sweet from the nearby salt marshes. Very pleasant is the scent. However, those salt marshes also bring unpleasantries as well. Today, the mosquitoes are out in force, about time to head back to the 1664 settlement. While you are out, these early Elizabethtowners have all been at work preparing tonight's festivities. This is a much welcomed comfort of community for each individual, though the area is bountiful, and all the settlers' necessities are met with ease. The pioneer day is long. You notice some families, but in 1664, many of the early arrivals were men and older sons ahead of their families. These men wanted to prepare for the arrival of the other associates, and have a homestead parceled out and ready before the arrival of the rest of kin from Long Island. Back from the hunt, a few men begin breaking down their bags, while other food is being prepared. Walking back, you might catch a brilliant sunset. The early evening sky is beginning. Unlike today, you will see a plethora of stars beginning to peer through. Auburn rays with purple highlights are radiating from the setting sun. Helios will eventually give way to the night sky. As you enter the village, you would hear laughter and singing. One settler brought his violin with him, another played percussion on all sorts of items. Washboards, tubs, spoons. You would notice that they are not wound up with drink. Not that you can't find it. These are Puritans, sure, but you can find alcohol. That said, it's just not that kind of party. You would be presented with plenty of game, berries, and some corn from the first harvest of the subsistence plots. The night would go on leading to camaraderie, and surely a few yarns and prayer. The early settlement in 1664 would give way to what would become New Jersey's fourth largest city, eventually leaving the mosquitoes behind and centering the new capital at the bend of the river, just below the heights. Perhaps we take a journey there in another time at another time. Let me know by liking and subscribing. Sharing videos is an extreme help, but just having you watch to the end is rather awesome. You rock. Thanks much.
It just makes society a really bad place to exist in.
Yeah. It looks beautiful, but my point is 100%. Point. The insane of the modern era, 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 the